My name's Linda Nieuwenhuizen. I've been a conservator since about 1986. Became interested in conservation after doing archaeology, where I would find artifacts during an archaeological dig and come back the next season and find that those artifacts had disappeared, had corroded, had fallen apart. And that kind of led to my interest in conservation. I wondered how could we save artifacts? And that kind of worked into becoming a conservator. And I went to grad school for conservation and have been practicing in the field since. This particular canoe that is above me is really one of a kind, one that remains very rare. Of course, each canoe that would have been created would be unique, following a certain set of techniques and materials use as part of the material culture for building a canoe. But this particular one is one that has outlasted time and is very important to our understanding of not only people, but of technologies, techniques, and material culture kind of as a whole. So I was asked to come and do an assessment of this canoe. It was obvious that it had fallen on a little bit of hard times. It definitely aged and was showing its age. And so as kind of a background check, I did some research into historical documents and documentation of how other birch bark canoes were made, and also how different people made them, because there are a lot of different styles in the birch bark history. When I first saw the canoe, I came in, it's hanging above me, and the first thing I noticed was that it seems to be created out of one piece of birch bark, which is really amazing. It's 14 feet, 8 inches long, and we assume that the tree that it came off of had to have a girth of about 50 inches, 55 inches or something in order to make the canoe, which is a really large piece of felled, not felled tree, but cut birch piece. That was the most amazing thing. That, and that it still exists, and that it's here at the Tomaquag Museum for people to see and appreciate. I know I really appreciate it. It's amazing. It's amazing. Canoe's condition right now is not as it was originally. It's over 150 years old. It has been used in the past, and although it has been preserved by keeping it inside and not in use, it has some structural problems and also aesthetic problems. So it does need a bit of preservation and conservation, and maybe some restoration to kind of bring it back to its former condition. I looked at the canoe and I noticed there were some condition issues, but also some things that seem to be use conditions. So the way certain things have been worn within the canoe, there's some abrasions inside where it looks like maybe there were feet or signs of use. Overall, the canoe looks pretty good from the outside, but has some aging and loss of parts. When I approach conservation, I generally I generally do what we call dry cleaning first. So before anything can happen, I do some testing to find out what the surface can look like, keeping within its age. So, for example, you'd want to maybe try using a certain way to remove dust. You'd want to vacuum and use brushes. You would never go to something immediately like trying to clean a surface with something wet or some kind of proprietary material like pledge or Windex or something like that. So slow, methodical testing to find out what would clean but also keep it within its age-specific history. And then we really look at structural problems, trying to bring the structure back into a condition where it's stable and able to withstand, say, its own weight and its own shape. And then from there, then you're really talking about the restoring kind of aspect of conservation, where we try and make things look better. And within that, we would talk about materials, where I'd really like to have a kind of a collaboration with what kind of materials we'd use. In conservation, generally we use reversible materials and materials that have not been used before in a construction. So if we're talking about the birch bark canoe has lost some birch bark, we as conservators wouldn't necessarily want to use birch bark, but we'd use a material that would mimic the strength and the color and the use of the birch bark. And in this case, a material that I sometimes use would be something like Tyvek, which is like your FedEx envelopes, that same material. And that can really be nicely changed in terms of coloration and workability. But in working with the Tomaquag Museum, I would like to really have a collaboration of materials and what we all feel is the appropriate thing to use. When I'm looking at an old canoe like this one, well, I guess I have to preface that with there aren't a lot of old canoes like this one. This is a one of a kind, a very unique, one of the last, maybe in fact the last. I'm checking everything. I'm checking how it was made. It's very interesting to see the details in the construction and what parts are still very apparent in the construction, and some that are more hidden elements because of the way it was constructed. So I'm really trying to get down to exactly how this particular canoe was put together and then how it's aged from its original condition. This canoe is unique, and I think it's also a great representative of the material culture and the techniques and materials and thoughtfulness and working through of creating something like this canoe. The fact that it's still here, that it's been cared for over these many years, and is within the museum is really a testament to the people who have been caretaking for it. And I think that's really, it's very admirable that we've still got it and that we can still study it and still work with it. I would be hard pressed to not find everything really amazing. Single sheet of birch bark being used, the use of, well, the formation of how it's put together, the uniqueness of the stitching, the pitch, the being able to take a single piece of birch bark and form it into a canoe by making small incisions. It's really technologically really magical. It's an amazing piece of not only transportation but material culture. There are a lot of contemporary Native American canoes out there. There are fewer Native Americans that are making the canoes now, but there's also a resurgence. Old canoes are few, and the ones that I've seen, which would be at like the American Museum of Natural History or the Maritime Museum or the National Museum of American Indian. Those canoes are, I don't really, there are some that are in better condition. I don't know, I can't think of anything positive, I'm sorry. It's a tough one because there's so many different conditions that are out there and so many different ways they've been collected and stored that then contribute to their condition. This one is not in, the finest shape, but it is an original and 150 years old, and it's been saved by being cared for. And it hasn't gone into a major museum. It's held by the museum here and through a family, which is amazing history. I think we need to get on to the conservation of this work, but I think really we have a need to move it from its current location. Right now it's suspended from the ceiling. There's a lot of temperature and humidity differential between being low in the museum to being up high. And the increase in the temperature and the relative humidity really don't benefit the organic materials that the canoe is made out of. So we've got some situations that are getting worse. We're getting more embrittlement and oxidation and aging. And it would be best if we can get the canoe down and clean it, put it in a better environment, and then really tackle some of the stability issues. I'm really excited about working on this project. Not only is the canoe something that really has my interest, but also working with people at this institution. There's a part of working on the canoe that involves taking oral histories and remembrances of canoes, recreating, using memories. And I think that really contextualizing this project within the material culture of the Narragansett and the Tomaquag Museum. I'm, beyond the conservation. Conservation is interesting, but working with people and understanding and learning is paramount to what I really want to do with conservation. So I'm not sure exactly how long it'll take to conserve the work. If I was working in a vacuum and I didn't have any input or any other historical background, or want to talk with people and understand different needs and different thoughts regarding the conservation and the preservation, it may be a relatively straightforward and quick kind of rote conservation. But I think what we want to do here is really work on the conservation and the preservation together, and learn from each other and be able to benefit from each other's knowledge. And since we also have other aspects involved in the conservation, like moving and creating a new museum and a new location, I think those kind of extend our time period into what really entails the overall conservation and preservation.